in law they're incompetent, their language will deal with incompetence, and the corporate operators of the corporate state will continue to make claim and gentrify their estates. They've abandoned their estates because they don't know themselves. Man, know thyself. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if he's talking about.
I know what he's fundamental protocols.
No, when you get your name, judicial notice and so forth, we talk about 7 locations to serve notice.
Not necessarily.
No, well, I'm just saying that's what everyone is under the impression that they have to automatically send this stuff out.
No, they don't.
Explain when and what case.
No. Let's back up. So we have to do some explaining.
Right.
And logically, because this thing is bigger than us, keep in mind we put the protocols and the judicial notice and the name proclamation and attribute change for the record for yourself. They're actually when there's a counter move against your estate. But it's the nation's business. And we're only a few. And there are so many people that's been taking advantage of our people that we decided to put it on site. And as a rule, understanding that the different corporate entities go in and out of the Cedars Trust on a constant basis on behalf of local corporate operations. So those are subdivisional federal agencies that these activities relative to the Social Security number, the CUSIC number, i.e. the birth certificate, etc., will route, because they're actually bank routing numbers, actually. And so the deal of it is they start having information amongst some of the major subdivisional agencies that this person is claiming their estate, and they're in their proper person. That's the only reason we did that. But it's not really necessary, in a sense, until the challenge is there. So what do? How many seats do we have here in the House of Reawakening Minds?
45.
How often is it not full?
100% of the time.
And yet we should have standing room only.
Yes.
However, we can't reach everyone, even though people from around the world know the House of Reawakening Minds.
Right.
The concept is what is necessary. You see? Because the concept gives you protocol. Are we clear?
Clear.
But the 7 places is only because of the 7 energies. Are we clear?
Clear.
Islam.
We're dealing with kind of what you say, spiritual mathematics,
Yes.
in a way.
Yes. Sacred geometry.
And then, at the same time, what occurs is when any of your local subdivisional agencies initiate an action, due to the fact that they all are members of the Roman Curia, they all are aware that they actually are private corporations operating under the shadow government of the cabal operation set up since February 2nd of 1871. Even though the people are pretty stupid. They know that they're a private corporation. So they know that their bond systems are floated via the Circle Church and the Chancel through these subdivisional agencies. So you could pretty much notify any one of them, and then it starts getting out there that this being is cognate of the estate issue. So it's easier for them to feed on the willing dummies and the willing people in dishonor than it is for someone who's willing now to say, I'm not waiting for the Lord to give me a cashmere coat. I'm not going to be the lamb standing in the corner, sheared, and talking about, well, Jesus going to give me a coat, because they ain't going to let that shepherd take their wool. You get the point?
Islam.
Which person's called Negro, black, and colored, never have a cashmere coat. The pastor always does, and they are in the pastor. They're sheeple, and they don't get it yet. And so nature is commanding that we start using our intelligence, like the European says. Any people that won't use their intelligence to solve problems is no better than animals in the field. Their steaks on the table. And so they have no cognizance, no conscience of feeding on people that don't use divine energy. Because we've all given them tools. And since they gave up their reasoning power for belief systems, tough cookies. And they ain't got none. Now, once you understand how things work, protocols are what? They're automatic. No one needs to tell you.
They're fundamental.
So what do we do when people get those papers? We tell you, don't do anything, study. What occurs is most people get them, and they don't get involved into doo-doo hits the fan, then they come for rescue. And they want to do a crash course, and they want to tell you, well, you know, finally you got the meal, how do you lift the fork? Look, we cook the food. We ain't got time for that. You better learn how to hook it. Yeah, but they didn't tell us how to hook the fork. They didn't tell us how to put the spoon in it. So we're going to argue about what's for dessert. And this is what they do. They ain't stuck a fork in the meal and want to debate the dessert. There will be casualties in war. Now that's the real truth. Because we give more than enough information for a child to figure this stuff out. And adults should be able to, if they're willing to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and just use their divine mind. Meaning it's called common sense applies to the common law, which trumps the Roman law and the canon law upon which the straw man was built. If you know that, you know protocol.
Yes. Yes.
In other words, if you know, see, we take walks, right? We just jogging and stuff. Every time we go down Fifth Street, they take our lunch.
You will stop going down Fifth Street, yeah, eventually.
Ain't nothing wrong with 6. You know, and we don't get it. You know what we remind us of? Now listen, look, and let's kind of look at how some people look at us. And you know, like some people get this attitude, this stereotype type attitude. They say black people don't want anything. You want to know why they have that stereotypical attitude? We always talk about Jesus, God, Allah, Moses, Muhammad, the Quran, the Bible. We know all of this stuff. We're so spiritual. We pray, we meditate. You know, I got this. We got all this going on, and we always begging. All the gospel songs are begging songs. We sing good though, but they're all begging songs. Yeah, they're all begging songs. They used to be songs where we maintained the culture.
Yes.
Did code systems for escaping European colonial operations. Now they're begging songs. And then we call them spiritual. We lying. However, the world don't feel sorry for us. Because if we got all these gods and these personal relationships that nobody else got, why are we always broke? At what point we don't get it? They kind of look at us like this. Notice this. Dang! That was a good one. Bang! Oh. They say, is he getting spiritual? No. See what we're doing? We're meditating because black people need their own aspirin factory. And a child would say, well, why don't you consider stop banging your head against the wall?
Exactly.
Not only would we not need aspirin factory, you won't need an aspirin at all. Oh no, we can't do that because we're in the struggle. Bang! And so that's how the world looks at us. Everybody got the idea that we don't want anything. Because we keep doing things over and over again that prove failure and won't change our position.
Is that absolutely right?
Sign of insanity. You understand? You know, how do we stop having black headaches? Stop banging your damn head on the wall. Especially on the corner where it comes like this. That's really painful. But we gotta believe in something, keep it up. And this is what we keep doing. And the world doesn't have time for that. Let's look at this realistically. How many of our people in any of our communities where they're gentrifying? Now, get this.
Yes.
When you get in your next book, I want to contribute to that book because what we're going to do, we're going to take a walk in Philadelphia.
Yes.
And we're going to do a survey. We're going to see how many blocks, just pick it, you know, we do this, you know how they, and then start walking.
Good.
And see if we can go 4 blocks without running to a church. Any corner. And then do some research and see how much these poor people are mortgaged to the hilt for these buildings that they're accusing of being the Lord's building. And then look at the communities with all of the blessings. The only one blessing is the guy walking down with a $3,000 suit into the Lexus with the sister from the choir trying to act like she ain't with him. You know, they go spend Jesus' hair. And talking about, in our neighborhood, we need jobs. And one day the Lord, hold your breath. Don't hold your breath. Gonna bring us some jobs. Just put it in the Lord's hand. He's gonna find 2 cars, but he's stealing the widow's pennies. Their problem is the gentrification is King Alfred. It's documented. The gentrification is unum sanctum policy. It's documented. The gentrification is the doctrine of discovery. It's documented. The gentrification is that all their property, including their labor, has been hypothecated. It's documented. But they won't go there because they ain't got nothing to do with religion. Well, that's why they don't solve no daggone problems. Since they don't want to deal with reality. See, what it is, you don't get it. See, because we're in the sandwiches, but we're not of the sandwiches. So I ain't baloney. And they still getting eaten. We are full of it. The protocols are obvious. We need to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render unto our mothers and fathers what is theirs. And that's this lost estate under European colonial occupation that's been hypothecated. Set up a trust. It doesn't even need to be serious, but what it does, it puts a bridge between you and the corporate operatives of the Roman Curia. They cannot do ex parte actions, which is one of their major keys of corrupt power. Because now they got to go to the administrator of the estate and they have to prove that they are the holder in due course, which they can never do. Why? Because the promissory note was separated from the mortgage from the beginning in violation of law in order to create the instruments that fund the whole transaction with a pooling company that they made these people a party to without their permission. And since they won't call the note that their signature is on, they've abandoned their estate. So they can gentrify these neighborhoods whenever they daggone feel like it with all of these believers. And I don't say that with humor. I say it because it's disgusting since these people don't use intelligence. All clear? Clear. That's why when some Europeans are losing their houses and they did adverse claims and the Supreme Court declared the MERS foreclosures all frauds, didn't they?
Yes.
Didn't they?
Yes.
Now, what occurred with most of those Europeans? They put their stuff in trust and went and took their houses back.
Yes.
In the so-called black communities, they insisted on still being Smith, Jones, and Johnson, which means they're not the proper person. So the status is dead. And status and the state are equals. Put that down, because that's important.
Yes.
Because you're talking to state law. Status and the states are equals. And Negro and black is a dead status. We're talking documented. So there's no need for them to be arguing about rights and properties, because they can't own them. Property can't own property.
Sure can.
And we need to get over ourselves and get over our egos. So, and this is back to protocols. Once you understand the component parts of a thing, it's called logistics. In language, it's called etymology.
Islam.
In engineering, it's called logistics. Etymology and logistics are, in ways, synonymous, except that you're dealing with language, sound, transfers, etc., meanings, truth, distinguished from falsehood, denotation, distinguished from connotation. In language, you're dealing with proper engineering, distinguished from fraud engineering, wrong gear, stuff like that. things that don't fit, round hole, square peg type thing. Once you understand them rules, once you can count, you can get on the cash register. You might be slow, but keep your books together. But if you don't know what's operating, that's when you have problems. And all I'm saying really is this, the operators and owners of the United States Service Corporation, which is a company and not a country, operate Cetus Trust, particularly on persons of Asiatic African descent since the Civil War, which was really a commercial mercenary operation. After which there was no treaty signed, which is why this stuff is going on to this day. Right? That's what operates. So how do you stop them from running in and out of this Cetus Trust? Because they've assigned themselves as folk over your estate, create a trust, and that stops it. Whether it's perfected or not is not the existence of it.
In principle.
So meanwhile, we can stop the BS, spending all our energy in these different organizations and come into venues like this and then do Saturday classes where you actually can do what you call detailed work.
Hello?
The same venue, or we can sit up here and say, I was walking down the street and I was hungry. And then I called on the Lord and I tripped and I almost bumped my head, but God saved me. And I saw a nickel. I knew I had a sandwich coming. That proves that God is real. That's the kind of stuff we do. And act like we made some profound testimonial stuff. And the world keeps laughing at us all the way to the bank while we keep playing these dizzy games and calling it spirituality. And then wondering why we keep catching hell. Our people don't even know what hell. Lobo. Give her the mic.
I got one. Unless you got yours, you want me to use my black slow?
So we don't go to hell on stuff.
I got it.
No, what's hell?
You got one.
I'll tell you how they don't read it, right? Lobo, go ahead.
Hell.
Give her the mic. Rap first while she's looking.
Yeah,
up.
I think because the brothers had
Do a
questions.
little bit of freestyle.
Yeah, in remembrance.
Go ahead.
Let's see, hell.
You go.
WL.
Now this is, again, everyone, and this is even like when we're doing protocols, understand that all operations of the politics and economics in North America is operated by the Circle Church and the Chancellor. And they're in your face. They're the bankers and the barristers that you call lawyers and attorneys that are in your face. They are the Circle Church, open in your face. All scholars know this, all so-called Negro black leader guys, 32-degree Mason guys know this, and the politicians, all of who are Masons and Eastern Stars, got a Moorish fez, pretending they don't know what this issue is.
I got it. You ready? You ready?
Are we clear? Go ahead.
All right, page 857 on 4th edition of Black's Law Dictionary.
Stay tight in the mic.
Page 857 in the 4th edition of Black's Law Dictionary, all right? Hell, the name formerly given to a place under the exchequer's chamber where the king's debtors were confined.
So hell was really in the exchequer's chamber under the church for people that didn't pay their tithes to Rome. And that was set up mainly by Sylvester II. And they keep telling you that it was for Jesusness and a place to go. You see the problem that we have? But they want to tell you about Jesus, God, Allah, the Bible, and the Quran. They're full of doo-doo, and we need to stop letting them get off this crap on our generation, sacrificing our babies, and then run around complaining about the symptoms.
What's the spelling for Cedar Trust?
It's Cetus Trust.
Cetus.
Yes.
SITUS.
That's,
Yeah. We're talking about what's really happening to our people. The point of it is if they would start using their intelligence, we would come together and easily solve half the problems overnight. Especially when the women really figure this out and stop sacrificing their families
Say that again.
to these priests. who they keep thinking love Jesusness. That's the truth. They're not ignorant of what's going on in these communities. They're part of it. Are we clear?
Clear.
This is the deal, and remind you again, ex parte actions is how they operate because they don't have to go through due process. The trust stops them from being able to do ex parte actions, so therefore they got to prove their position. And they will guarantee lose if you study the rest of the stuff that we give you. That's why they keep doing it, because our people too daggone lazy. And they keep putting their energy into institutions that do them no good. And you bring institutions to them that bring solution, they ain't got time.
Taj, when you mean trust,
Turn the mic up.
Get in the mic.
okay, trust, you said.
You get in the mic.
Right, trust, right? Where do you go put the trust in? If you set up a trust.
See, why you say put it anywhere?
Okay, all right, say, I'm in the process.
Why there's an assumption that you put it somewhere?
I'm in the process, right, of nationalization, right, in my proper person. I'm not there yet, but I'm in the process. So if I was in my proper person, right, where
First
do I...
trust.
Where do you...
First trust.
Okay, I make the trust, my body...
Now what is, you know,
I claim my body.
you lose your passion. What is a trust?
Security.
No, it's not. What's a trust?
I got him.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I'm saying,
No,
There's nothing wrong with it, bro.
nothing wrong.
I don't know what it
I
is.
want.
That's
Good.
right. That's
Thank
right.
you.
That's right. Thank you.
Therefore, you're starting to make statements with an assumed comprehension, and you're already wrong.
But I hear you mentioning trust all the time. Set up a trust. Set up a trust. What is a trust and when do we go set it up?
Trust yourself.
Boom! Be clear.
But how do I
Now.
stop a foreclosure if the house is being sold or foreclosed?
All right.
How do I protect that?
That's when you introduce the trust. That's when you use your proclamation papers. Do you understand? Because this is what happens.
If I do a stop.
That's what that it creates an estoppel.
Okay, when I do a stop.
All right.
I hear you mention
Now you
trust.
now look, because you're on key. Now he's saying estoppel. Now what would we be thinking as a council? Are you doing it in their jurisdiction, or you're acting in diversity and presenting it from your position? Because if you're doing it in their jurisdiction, you're subject. So you need to be cognizant of that, right?
Right.
So you need to be cognizant of jurisdiction and position. Meaning that if we're playing chess, you look at the other side of the board, but you don't start reaching over there moving things on the other side of the board, you're out of place. You got to understand your moves in contradistinction to those moves. Thesis, antithesis. Are we clear?
Clear.
So, pull out a note that you call a dollar bill. Now, estoppel in their jurisdiction under a motion can be right as hell and dismissed.
Yes.
If it's an affidavit coming from your own venue, improper person, they gotta answer it.
Period.
Even if my name is not on the signature, even if it was my parents' home and my name is not on the signature.
What are you saying? See, now, listen you all, because we want to study this, right?
Yes.
We want to study, because we're all family.
Break it down.
Yes.
Break it down. I want to know.
The assumption that your parents own it in the first place is already wrong.
Yes.
Wait, hold on. There's deal logistics. What's your parents' names?
Adil Muhammad. Abdul Muhammad.
All right, so they are national. They're implied national, all right? Now, so they're conscious that they've turned back to Islam. So they have part of it fixed. What's it say on their nationality cards?
Their nationality card. Their nationality
Yeah.
card. Adil Muhammad.
All right, good. Now, what's their nationality?
El Moroccan. More.
Is that what's on their nationality card?
I don't know.
No, do you see, now, we're talking logistics. When you're talking logistics, we look at component parts and analyze them.
Yes.
We don't say, oh, this is my brother, and therefore, you know, I know where you coming from, man, and stuff like that, and what, that's not gonna work. We must identify the pieces. All right? Now, I'm gonna give you a key. Number 6, actual facts. What is a Mason?
A Muslim
Ma-
son. Oh, sorry.
He answered it.
I didn't answer him.
My bad. I thought we said
Masonry is
No.
mother
it's
and
not.
son.
No. All right. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, being an addict, gave a key in actual facts. He said, what is a Mason? The answer, a Mason is a Muslim son. Now, the brothers and sisters in the masjid claim to be Muslims. Not that that's wrong. But how many people notice that and never examine it? Show you something. Swipe that. And did you also notice that he dealt with the geography of the planet? Mm-hmm. Huh? Mm-hmm. Oh, all right, just throwing it out there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What does that mean, and what do you understand that you're looking at?
Actual facts, what is a Mason? A Mason is a Muslim son. A Muslim son.
Now we're going to go into culture, we're going to go into nuance, and thus the protocol. Now, brothers and sisters in the Nation of Islam, explain it. We're not talking about rights and wrong, we're talking about explaining. And I'm just saying to you how things can be presented to people, and they can be dealing with things for years. And you can, if you question them, you can see that they're not being taught, and they also don't study. What did you always say? Go back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers. Now, nation of I, self, law, and master. So a Mason is a Muslim son. So the Masons are running the planet. They're Muslim son. So therefore, everyone in power all over the planet, if it's a woman, she must be an Eastern Star, or daughters of Isis. If it's a man, he must be a Mason or a Shriner, etc. And they may have different names for the different lodges, but they're all Masons, and they got a Moorish fez. I guarantee you that. Dressed in jewels, they pin the tassel down now, because they ain't the daddy. What I'm saying is people are given things and don't know what they're given. And how far they go with it is how far they recognize what they have. Are we clear? What we're talking about is solution. What we're talking about is when you get knowledge, what do you do with it? Right? So what would you recognize with this? And you can add when, what, where. Then you go into the Renaissance, don't you? Right? Right? When's the Renaissance?
7, with the Moorish Renaissance?
You don't answer a question with a question. And don't make stuff up.
Renaissance.
Now, listen to this. We're family. The reason why we're asking these questions, we're generating thought. We want you to think. But we want you to recognize how the world really runs. Because when you have someone in opposition to you, they're not necessarily merciful. Here, we will give you leave and give you comfort. In the ring, they take your head off.
Well, I'm going to get in the ring so they take my head off.
Yeah, now, so. Rome is using unum sanctum policy to steal these people's estates. Our issue is to start saving our estates, or claiming our estates, right? Right? So therefore, to do so, we must be competent. At any point that you demonstrate incompetence, they will declare you a minor under the tag minority, and you have no rights. And the state you're declared a ward of the state, and all your stuff is taken anyway. And they don't have to account for the profits. Wardship tenure, write that down. Wardship tenures. And then go to your law book. We won't even go into it right now. We're talking about cures, right? We're talking about cures. All actions that they make in North America those are the legal proceedings, not necessarily lawful, how they've been taking people's property. When you set up a trust, what it does, it corrals this. That creates an estoppel. But if you do an estoppel by normal due process that appears to be due process under the United States democracy order, which is actually a feudal law platform, the republic is not recognized, nor is a allodial title. Therefore, they just simply dismiss it and take your stuff anyway. That's called gentrification. You see? But you need to know that already. So if you have a trust in place, the derivatives that they have floating around the world and on Wall Street become dead paper. You know, like in The Wizard of Oz, when you see the Wicked Witch of the West and all that stuff. And the house falls from the ethers in my father's house. The many mansions, the ethereal world falls down on her, and her socks curl up, stockings curl up under the house. And Dorothy says, "Hey, them Gucci's is kind of nice." And I'm so scared. And the good witch said, "Oh, you like them Gucci's?" "Yeah, but I really just want to go home." And the good witch, wise woman, says, "Ching!" Dorothy, "Oh, shit." Hey. Right? And everybody told her, just follow the old road. This is Zodiac Constitution means just go back to the principles of your mothers and fathers. You didn't leave home, you just bumped your head. In many ways they tell you over and over again what's wrong, what they're going to do to you, what your culture is, It's just that you gotta be able to see it. Failure to recognize it is abandonment. As long as you abandon, long as they have mandate. Are we clear?
Clear.
I want to say something. Renaissance, look that up. Renaissance. And then you answer it. We're not going to get into that right now for time's sake. What would be a particular, and let's go to a better, this is a course version, and we're going to go, say, like into, this version. In principle, if you know and you're aware of, hold on, that they have set up these Sister QB trusts, right? And Cedars Trust, and hypothecated your estate. This is a short version. And those of you who have it on flash drive, you've got a longer version. So what would you do? In the name or the nom de guerre, which is a title to a trust, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Isn't it? Mm-hmm. Which is why they have it in all capital letters, and it doesn't belong to you, it belongs to them. So what happens when you try to intrude on it? They accuse you of copyright infringement. This is why UCCs, the promises don't work. Because you can't be it and not it at the same time. So you got to learn how to walk that line when you try to make a claim on that CETUS that they have operating in the derivative market, mustn't it? Mm-hmm. So this is where the, what would you call it? Under rule of res judicata.
Ex-relation.
And ex-relation.
That's right. I'm sorry, I might have said it was full, but I said ex-relation.
That sandwich is good.
I'm so sorry. Yes, ex-relation. My apologies. Ex-relation is how you will walk that line.
Yeah, but an extra relation. An extra relation. This is how you start arguing an interest in that trust without claiming it, which doesn't let them off the hook. But basically, in general, what you say, I make no claim with respect to the title, name, nom de guerre, that's the Smith, Jones, and Johnson that they use. And I surrender and assign any and all reversionary interests to the United States and subsidiaries for full quittance discharge settlement and closure of my reliance, Title 12 USC 95A Part 2, and I assume no liability and do not consent to stand as surety at any point, moment, or time. Now that's an adverse claim, and it's also a rebuttal. But if you know that they're operating a CETUS trust, in its nature, that's sufficient, although you can expand on it.
Yes.
You see the point? And we have expanded on it, but that's sufficient. Because you're dealing with the issue. Meaning that you're not incompetent because you're dealing with the issue. It's actually what's happening. If you start talking about that,
See, what it is, I feel as though you don't like black people and stuff. So what we're going to do, we're going to protest in front of your office and stuff. I'm getting my boys and my dog, and we marching. We're going to march hard and heavy. And I got a new pair of Adidas too. And they ain't impressed with you. We wonder why they ain't impressed with us. And then we follow behind these people that keep putting us through this stuff instead of dealing with what's really going on. That's what's wrong with us. We're incompetent. Are we clear?
Clear.
Let's back up. Earlier we read in the House Joint Resolution 192 that they hypothecated all properties, including the labor, So your labor is hypothecated, right? No, that wasn't Wilson. Wilson, what he did, he converted all the allodial titles into mortgages and deeds. So mortgages and deeds at North America did not exist as a political reality on real property in the state until 1913. Prior to that, you had aboriginal titles and allodial titles. So who does that apply to? They apply to the people of the land. What would you show you in King Albert? These people are bound to the continent by heritage. Who are the people of the land? These people who think that human beings are crayons, which are incompetent positions to take. So the Europeans are hypothecating their property since they're running government. Because these people just want to deal with belief systems. They don't want to deal with facts, and so therefore they're incompetent, and therefore everybody keeps robbing them while they sit around and talk about their beliefs. And they feel good about themselves. But not to the bank. Do you understand? Now, the assumption that your mother and father is not sharecroppers is problematic. Because you're operating with the assumption that your mother and father, and you love them, and sure we love our mothers and fathers, right? So we make assumptions that we're heritable, don't we? Don't we?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, give me a law book. Give me this cheat. I'm going to show you something. And again, while we're here at the House of Reawakening Mind, and also while you get a flash drive, and it's enough to keep people busy for 15 years, 20.
Yeah.
We started off with 10. When our son did his thing, now they got 20, 25 years of study.
All praise to Jesus.
Really?
640.
And even then,
Yeah.
they may not be done. But they got a lot of tools. You understand? All they got to do is use them. Go ahead. Now I want you to use the big one. Okay. Now that's good, handy. I want you to use the big one. Come on.
Page 640 of the Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, page 640, as cheat. In feudal law, cheat is an obstruction of the course of descent
The natural course of descent.
and consequent determination of the tenure by some unforeseen contingency, in which case the land naturally reverts back by a kind of reversion to the original grantor or lord of the fee.
There you go. So persons with brands are not descendable, and it already reverts to the corporate state unless you have it in place, an adverse claim and a trust, and are qualified heir to receive the estate. Now, if you're Smith Johnson Johnson, you're not descendable. If you're Asiatic African descent, for those are nom de guerre, they belong to the European operators that operated on North America. And if your mother's Smith Johnson Johnson, they ain't got it either. It belongs to the corporate state. Are we clear?
Clear.
That's why you nationalize, because in law, your connection to the exercise of what is called the common law is based on your traditions and customs association with your ancient mothers and fathers from time immemorial. That is derived in common law from the ancient principle of honor your mothers and your fathers, that your days may be longer upon the earth land which the Lord thy God has given you. If you're not in the honor of your ancient mothers and fathers, you cannot argue a state. It does not stand with you, because the status and the state are equals. This is why the Dutch masters put their family names on the people of the land to steal their estates. These are established facts, they're not opinions. People thinking that because some generations pass and they don't have to deal with it, well, that's their mistake, because the law don't change. So therefore, being an heir to the estate, it is to your advantage intelligently to take that property and put it in a allodial title and put it in trust as quickly as yesterday. So that any attempt to come at it, all you got to do is present it, and what it does, it stops any proceedings. It is an estoppel without them permitting you. It is an estoppel by nature of the existence of the trust. And it's because it's private, you don't have to file crap with them. Just put them on notice when they come at you. Difference between public and private, you need to understand what that is. What made this stuff private is the hypothecation action on their part. Yeah, well, there it is.
Peace. So I had a property, had put it in the notarial title, it was taken, now it's up for sale. So all I have to do is put it into trust and.
Fraud has no statute of limitation, does it?
Okay, and I can just take it back.
That means you can go back, can't you? All you gotta do is have the right argument, don't you? Hmm? And you certainly have the intelligence. So ain't we here in the House of Reawakening Minds?
Yes.
So what do? This is what we do. We start analyzing, just like you're doing right now. You get the sisters together, those sister circles, and you all discuss this thing, and you all work this thing out, and guess what? You all come and tell us sons what to do, and then we do what we do, and we ain't got to pray on it. You just lay your hands upon it. In the mind.
And the same thing, there's a, another sister where her mother passed, gave her the property, but it wasn't in.
Thought she did.
Right, and it wasn't in her name.
Now, this is what we want to do. We want to stop assuming things
Okay.
that are natural when we're in an unnatural platform. We must recognize that we're in an unnatural platform. The assumption that you're descendable puts you in a comfort zone that's mentally there, not factually there. What we want to do is change those dynamics by giving us, ourselves, the responsibility to look at things for what they really are. It takes the same breath to tell the truth that it takes to tell a lie. Therefore, truth is not difficult. It's will. Now, so, let's look at this. 1913, Woodrow Wilson met with the Jesuit order, members of the Circle Church and the Chancery, and the bankers of England under the secret treaty of Verona off Jekyll Island, off Georgia, sold their portion of what you would call appearance of sovereign activity by treaty law at North America, because the shell was broken. Now, in other words, it was bankrupt, but they did have assets. That ain't theirs, but they had assets that they're still administering. So the necessity for them to have any what you call fungibility was to convert the allodial titles to mortgages and deeds and do the double bookkeeping that they've been doing since then. Now, you see the double stock trust, they talk about House Joint Resolution 192. But it's all on us. Meanwhile, we sitting around talking about our beliefs and hallelujah to you and everything, singing gospel songs. And they're singing all the way to the bank on our estates. Including the houses that we're accusing to belong to God, mortgaged by them. And the major contractors was even them. In our so-called communities. But we're deep in beliefs. Do you understand the problem here? Meanwhile, we're suffering that we want to have marches and meetings and complaints rather than deal with what's really these issues. Because we ain't in, because we got to prove that we're not of the world. Fine. That's how the world, anyone that don't use their intelligence to solve problems is no better than animals in the field and are treated accordingly. And we just haven't gotten over ourselves that idol God worship hasn't worked for us very well. So now, we're here at the House of Reawakening Minds, trying to fix things for real. So the first thing we want to do is take our shoes off at the door, do it psychologically. You understand?
Yes.
And whosoever will, let them come. Whosoever will, let them hear. Because the truth is available to anybody that wants it. If they sought, they would have found it. It's not a secret, that's why we give you documents. Right? Yeah, but the black leader said if we march stronger this time, they're going to give us 5 sandwiches. ones that makes money is the airplane companies and the trains and the buses and the vendors, and the best thing our people get is little vending stands that they pay for out there selling little Negro trinkets and incense and call it success. They're full of doo-doo. Like D&D says, we used to have hotels, ain't got none. We used to have mom and pop stores all over the place, ain't got none. You know why? Because we want to be civil rights guys. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Now, so what we're saying here at the House of Reawakening Minds, with all due respect, we're trying to get real. We're looking logistically at the real component parts. We want us to stop dealing with emotion. Is look at the component parts and we can solve this thing. What you want to do, you want to come together, come from council, come up consular positions called diversity, Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution. These principles all over the world. Issue your dispensation from your order, because that's how it operates in nation states, etc., even though you've been subdued, and seal it. And when they make a challenge, you present it, and guess what it is? It's the best estoppel in the world. Because you are the heir of the world's largest estate. You just ain't been speaking up because you didn't have confidence in yourself. You didn't believe in your own nativity. You only believed in his. So again, they keep giving him jurisdiction and complaining because he takes it. So we redundantly go over certain things to build your confidence, to give you confidence in yourself. We give you documents to show you how things work.
It's not for you.
How things work. So the protocols are obvious. We tell you certain things they do in their operations. So things are obvious. So we don't have to keep telling you every little thing. It becomes obvious what you do. Are we clear?
Clear.
Fraud has no statute of limitations. Now what you want to do is you want to name the parties that made a claim on your estate. Right? Do not talk corporate entities. Corporate entities are dead. They can't do anything. Don't consider suing Santa Claus because he didn't give you the bike. You better consider the persons who own the foundation that took the finance from you, from your account, and named the living man or woman that cashed those checks. You start talking about the corporate entities, you just gave them a mask and now they can hide forever. Are we clear?
Clear.
Always deal with the living man or woman. They only create corpses so that when you start punching, you're punching the dead and not the living. And understand, Allah is the God of the living and not of the dead. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Now, do you want to be in the book of life? It's called nationalization all over the world. It's called honoring your mothers and your fathers. It's called the book of life. That's what it's really called.
And another quick question. So is it, am I correct in understanding that using the reversion error is?
In the nature of it, this is just a short. Now I'll show you another version of this. This is just a short, just to, to present the cognizance of how we should be thinking. Because our people, see, because this is, certain things that we do are just simply to establish concept. That's all. If the concept is there, and we want you to be able to do things on your own. Are we clear?
Clear.
And that's for anybody. And so certain things we do is for concept alone. And this is why some things we do Like, we'll give you other instruments or go into other parts of history and law, and then we'll come back to certain things that we presented you before to show you that everything is relative. You know, but it has to become cognate to you. So we don't want you like to listen to us and to move on what we say. We want you to just consider what we say, use your intelligence, add or subtract. You know, but understand the concept. So therefore, 2 and 2 is 4. 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 is 4. 2 and 1 and 1 is 4. 2 and 1 half and 1 half and 1 and 1 half and 1 half is 4. You know, once you understand the protocols become obvious once you understand what you're dealing with. Which is why we're redundant on certain things, so that we don't get caught in the gray area, because we keep trying to think this stuff is mysterious. It's not mysterious. It's common sense with common law. But we have been trained not to use common sense. Therefore, the common law doesn't apply to such persons. That's why they call them people of color, which means artificial persons dealing with artificial law. They're hiding a reality. They're hiding from responsibility. They deal with BS Dorf that they gave them, and they won't release it, and therefore the European controls the narrative. Therefore, he controls your estate. It's not hard whatsoever. And so we're trying to get people to recognize that culture's in the language, to change your language, to start fixing it. You know, and if you want to be lazy about it or abbreviate, good, that leaves an opening for them, and they keep taking advantage of you. It's simple, it's not complex. Really, not at all. Now, here's another version of it, see? Same thing, reversion. Now, so I, and then it will be your attribute, right? So read that out loud, go ahead. Read it with authority.
I, Atia Kirkland Bey, the living sentient woman, repudiate and rebut all hypothecation claims made by the foreign and misrepresented
Say it a little louder. You guys, you're on a mic. Come on, you gotta talk like you're in the air.
Misrepresented persons doing business as or associated with United States Incorporated. I do therefore publicly and privately proclaim and declare my divine and natural rights to my corporal and incorporeal hereditaments and affirm notice and claim reversion to my estate. Therefore, I, Atia Kirkland Bey, the living sentient woman, the rightful heir, am not lost at sea, and I affirm and declare my right of reversion of estate. And therefore, I make no claim with respect to the title and misrepresented, capitalized name of straw, man of straw, and nom de guerre, being a title, and the spurious creations of the foreign de facto United States corporate operators, actors, and owners, and I surrender and assign any and all reversionary interests to the foreign, privately owned United States and its subsidiaries for full acquittance, discharge, settlement, and closure of my reliance. Title 12 U.S.C. 95A, Part 2. I assume no liabilities or debts, however contrived, among its corporate associates, and I do not consent to stand as surety for the foreign, private, and for-profit United States Incorporated and U.S. Corporation Company, entity owners, directors, or their administrators, nor do I stand as surety for its subsidiaries or its associates at any point or moment in time.
Same principle expanded, isn't it? You're just closing more doors, right? So this is what they're operating. All persons whose rights, liberties have been hypothecated are standing as surety to back their private debt on the guise of a public forum, on the guise that you are their stock citizen. So when you nationalize, you're automatically disengaging that assumption. And you're claiming your estate, and it's documented, therefore it is a what? It's a fiduciary request as an heir. So you're telling the fiduciary that you're confident. You want your sandwiches. They're misusing them. Now what happens is, once this starts getting circulated in any public venue on notice, anyone, even nation states on the other side of the water, if they got them derivatives, they're dead paper. They're not redeemable.
And I can just send it back.
If you know what happens is, so that it don't crash the market, they sell them and try to hide it while selling them. But they got to dump them. So what happens is all of those private instruments start coming back. So what happens is that the members of the Circle Church have to buy them and create a false market for them because they can't let them circulate in the public because it will collapse. This is what's happening to the United States as we speak. You need to know that.
They call that qualitative easing.
Exactly, that's what's happening. They're buying the instruments and storing them in warehouses. Nobody wants them. Are we clear? So what's happening, you're getting ready to go into hyperinflation. Are we clear?
Clear.
This is why Europeans, so-called wealthy Europeans, are denouncing their U.S. citizenship and have been taking their funds offshore, and this is why they did House Joint Resolution 2748. No, 2748, yeah, something like that. And they're going after all those accounts. This is what's going on in the real world while we're sitting around marching and praying. When you should be nationalizing, setting up a trust, getting ready for this crash. That's unavoidable. Are we clear?
Clear.
And while these things take place, it's in the interest of everybody to fix this thing. Now you understand why Trump is trying to restore the republic in spite of everything, even though he's a Knights Templar? And the order of Christ that they call the Templars is the Circle Church that's actually been creating all these problems. So now let's look at this real quick, and let's go through this real quick, y'all. And this is redundant, but we want to see how obvious stuff is once you understand how things operate. And we talk of protocols, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, these are fundamental truths. All right, matter of fact, you got the mic, so go ahead and do your thing. And read directly read with authority.
Commentary on the letter issued by Pope Francis, Civil Orders. The original and de jure Constitution and government for the United States of America at North America, having a Republican form of government set forth and established at Article 4, Section 4, stands as the supreme law of the land. That organic constitution was altered by acts of misprision and was secretly overthrown and converted into a foreign, privately owned, and deemed for-profit corporation in the year 1871. See the Act of Congress, 1871. That said misprision, derived in foreign feudal law entity born of treason, was styled as the United States Corporation Company, which is now commonly referred to as the United States Democracy. The foreign and privately owned entity deceptively created by acts of sedation in all its many states of entities or its other licensed and associated corporate franchises. Or is that franchise?
Were and are ultimately
and factually owned by the Vatican, being members of the Roman Curie. This politically and socially subdued truth, in fact, is actually the veiled foundation and source of the functioning jurisdictional powers that gave and still gives the Pope of Rome or the Vatican and bishopric.
bishopric. That's all you collective clergy as a body.
Bishopric the colorably valid and affirmable authority over the entity, U.S. democracy, and United States corporation, and also jurisdiction over those subordinate associated entities as expressed and executed via the impacting letter. This letter or edict titled Civil Orders was posted on August 19, 2015, but if this said posting is correct, the measured time reports that it was apparently sent to President Obama over a year ago, being July 4th of 2014. The Pope's letter not only confirms that the United States, U.S., is operating under a corporation, but that the Pope's letter also affirms that General Carter Ham will be heading up the new republic when it is announced. The announcement will be part of what is known as the Nassara announcements. This current page was working for the light anyway. Don't waste your time on the political circus concerning the U.S. election. I don't expect to see one. When the Nassara is announced, the new interim president becomes the president of the new republic for 6 months, after which free elections are held. We can then elect the interim president for another 4 years or elect someone else. The content of the letter below is pretty self-explanatory. You may want to check out the attachment, Mr. T.
Read this.
Source, www.
Right, read it. Now, this stuff now is big. Look on the board. You can probably see it better.
Pope Francis sends Obama a powerful letter via attorney on July 4th, 2014. Civil Orders, July 4th, 2014. Issued to all members of the domestic police forces, U.S. Marshal Service, the Provost Marshal, members of the American Bar Association, and the American Armed Services. These organic American states of the Union, known as the United States of America, major, exercising plenary civil power upon the land, hereby appoint General Carter F. Ham to lead and command the Grand Army of the Republic and its successors under the guidance of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and with their full support. Should it become necessary to suppress commercial mercenary forces operating under the guise of being federal government agencies, including but not limited to the Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, the Internal Revenue Service, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, etc. General Ham shall assume immediate command and control of all armed forces and services owed to the United States of America, major, stationed in North America, and shall join them under his command as the Grand Army of the Republic. All forces of air, land, and sea are to be employed. Any cost or loss suffered as a result of deployment of the Grand Army of the Republic shall be charged as stipulated prior. All efforts shall be made by the Grand Army of the Republic to spare life and property while undertaking any action whatsoever within the states of the Union without exception. The Grand Army of the Republic is uniquely enabled by these orders to operate on the land of the 50 organic states for the purposes of securing the lives and property of the American states and American state citizens. The Grand Army of the Republic is not a foreign army and is composed primarily of American state citizens. If required to take field position, the local commanders shall make every effort to communicate the basis of their authority and the reasons for their presence on American state soil to ensure a prompt cessation of hostilities and a widespread understanding of the usurpations and acts of fraud which have led to any conflict. All parties must be brought to understand the nature of the federal government, the limitations of its authority, and their own obligation to act in favor of the organic states of the Union. The Grand Army of the Republic shall continue to operate under General Order 100, known as the Lieber Code, extant from the pen of the last Republic President, Abraham Lincoln. No orders, executive or otherwise, issued by Barack H. Obama pretending authority on the land of the American state while operating as President of the United States Corporation, nor as the President of the United States of America, minor, are owed any performance by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Ham, or any ordinary. all plainly stated grants of contractual authority evident in the Constitution for the United States of America remain in place, subject to good faith performance of the company obligations of and treaties. Mr. Obama is the president.
Excuse me.
Of a governmental services corporation under contract to provide stipulated services to the organic states and is on their payroll. He otherwise acts as a foreign dignitary representing the United States of America minor. In neither of these capacities is he allowed any general authority to impose upon American state
Any
citizens.
granted authority.
Any granted authority to impose upon American state citizens, endanger American state property, or command mercenary forces on American state soil, however veiled as federal civilian service agencies. We require the Joint Chiefs of Staff and General Ham to commence measures to disarm federal civilian agency personnel and to seize control of the vast stockpiles of arms which have been improperly amassed by the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and other agencies employed by the United States. The only federal agency allowed free egress on the land of the American states is the U.S. Marshals Service, and then only when their personnel are engaged in their duty to protect the U.S. mail and sworn to act as constitutional officers. All other federal agency personnel are limited to unarmed service until further notice. We direct the Joint Chiefs of Staff to communicate these first two general civil orders directly to Mr. Obama, the members of the U.S. Congress, the administrators of all federal agencies, the members of the Supreme Court, and those acting as governors to compel their rapid understanding and cooperation. Any expense or damage incurred by these organic states or any American state citizens as a result of actions undertaken by any federal agency personnel acting as armed mercenaries on American soil will be understood as the result of violent crimes committed against the peaceful inhabitants of the land and will incur immediate judgment, liquidating the assets of the International Monetary Fund and the Federal Reserve in payment of the stipulated reparations. Such crimes shall also be considered contract default, increasing the public debt subject to bounty. Any and all corporate officers of the United States or any successor organization inheriting federal service contracts who support, condone, or promote such crimes against the American states or against American state citizens shall be subject to arrest and prosecution for commercial and violent crimes. Wow. All foreign officials operating as elected or appointed officials of the United States of America minor who support, condone, or promote such crimes against the American states or against American state citizens shall be subject to arrest, confiscation of their assets, and deportation to Puerto Rico, Guam, or such other states as may be willing to receive them. Such foreign officials include members of the American and British Bar Associations who were licensed to act as privateers against the interests of the American state and the American state citizens from 1845 to 2013 in flagrant breach of trust. All such licenses are now extinguished. Members of the bar associations are required
To cease. Members of the Bar Association?
to cease and desist assaults against the American states and American state citizens and shall be subject to arrest, confiscation, and deportation. I've read that already. In so much as corporate officers operating in the United States of America, incorporated in the United States, have contrived under conditions of fraud and semantic deceit to revenue
Do we, and you?
the estates of the American states and living American state citizens to the foreign jurisdiction of the United States of America minor. They are found guilty of capital crimes, including acts of fraud and treason committed between 1933 and 1945, and are condemned posthumously in so much as elected officials operating in the United States of America minor have similarly committed war crimes against the American states and their peaceful inhabitants during the same time period. They stand condemned posthumously. No enforcement upon any American state or American state citizen is owed as a result of any act of any Congress operating as the sovereign government of the United States of America minor, nor as the board of directors or board of trustees of any incorporated entity whatsoever. All those estates and estates.
Lowercase and uppercase, you see, right?
Yeah.
Keep on.
Erroneously believed to represent the American states and American state citizens, and which were conveyed by fraud and legal deceit to the United States of America minor, and more recently to the city-state of the United Nations, are revenued without exception to the geographically defined American states and the American state citizens, where they shall remain in perpetuity as assets belonging to the rightful and lawful beneficiaries. All legal fiction entities, however structured and named after the American states and American state citizens, are returned to them in their control, free and clear of any debt, promise, encumbrances, or obligation alleged against them as a result of false claims made in their behalf by officers of the United States of America, Incorporated, and the United States, Incorporated, or by any foreign officials operating in the United States of America minor or the United Nations city-state, falsely claiming to represent them or to have jurisdiction over them. We note that the current circumstance is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans who were similarly claimed similarly claimed as chattels backing the U.S. government debt in the wake of the Civil War. Despite every act of abolition and declaration of prohibition against both peonage and slavery, it has been the policy of the U.S. government to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state among the nations of the world. Instead of freeing African Americans, the sum total result of the Civil War was to vastly expand public sector ownership of slaves, giving rise to the outrageous and improper claims that have been made against the American states and the American state citizens that we are dealing with today. It is uniquely fitting that the Grand Army of the Republic is recalled to settle this circumstance in favor of the people. Attachments, civil orders, Anna Marie, Wilhelmina, Hannah Sophia, private attorney in service to His Holiness Pope Francis documents related. The United States isn't a country, it's a corporation, the Hidden Vatican Crown Empire. It doesn't exist in name only.
All right, now, no, listen. Thank you all for coming out to the House of Reawakening Minds. But the deal of it is within the letter from the Pope to Obama, you also recognize protocols. You also recognize that the straw man, you don't need to be going through no process, you need to claim your nationality. You're the geographically defined Americans. So if you're not nationalized, you're not the geographically defined American.
At all.
So the Pope's telling you, because we know you so-called black leaders ain't gonna tell you. Because he owns them. You get the point? In other words, the protocols are obvious. Anyway, thank you all for coming out to the House of Reawakening Minds. Come on, Dr. Wayne.
Final announcements, yeah. First of all, thank you all for coming out tonight. I want to just, those of you who were here last week for Father Hannibal's awesome metaphysical teaching this month, we have Awakening Dialogue, and our special guest from the is Patsy P.J. Cannon. We want everybody to come out. She's from the Center for Blissful Living, the Sisters Deep. She's New Orleans born and bred, and she's an awesome sister, metaphysical, spiritual, and funny, and a vegan chef. She'll be here at 3 o'clock on the 25th. We want you to come out for that. We also want you to, no, do not put that camera on me. We also want you to register for the astrology workshop. How many are excited? I mean, we got a little preview of that today, those of us who were here earlier. And we want to make sure that you get the full complement of that teaching of Hassan's, Brother Hassan's teaching. The spots are filling up. We want you to register before the 21st of April. Of course, we want you to register hopefully, no, by the 14th, because we're going to close registration down on the 14th, but we want you to be a part of that. And let me see, we're going to have Sister Rosmariah, the Bey next week, and then the following Friday, because we have, I'm talking y'all in here, y'all being loud, I'm still giving announcements. On the following Friday, the 5th Friday, we're going to have Brother Mizraim from, who is Sister Rosmariah the Bey's son. He will be teaching here on the 5th Friday, so we want you to tune in. And let me see.
Case number 63, I'm saying that for a good
You're supposed to
reason.
say 36.
Well, I'm saying a 9 for good reason.